Hello guys, today we are going to talk about VPN and how to secure traffic that is originating from your Docker containers to the internet. Let's say your plan is to have a few containers that are running on your Docker host, where some of them will always connect to the VPN immediately after they boot and should pass entire traffic only through the VPN network. In the same time, few other containers would use your regular unprotected connection, where all of the containers should still be accessible from local network, no matter if they are locked with VPN or not. If this is something you would like to achieve, keep watching. This instruction is going to be based on LMDS stack. It can also be adopted to any other Docker Compose instances almost with no modification. This is also not a VPN vendor specific instruction. It will work more or less the same way for all the providers. I'm using ProtonVPN for the task and I'm finding them very good. So if you haven't decided which provider to choose yet, consider using ProtonVPN. You can use the link from underneath the video and this way support the project if you wish. Thank you in advance. Also, while we are on the subject of project support, some of you raised the interest of donating to the project. On this occasion, I set up a donation with a PayPal on the website. You can find the link underneath the video also. If you like what you see and have some funds to spare, I appreciate your help. Now let's jump to the command line and get something set up. As you can see in Portainer, we already have containers set up, Portainer, Sonarr, and Deluge. These are going to be our examples that we're gonna modify later on. If you want to know how to get to this point, look up on my earlier videos on LMDS and it should be all there. In order to get VPN going in Docker, we would need a VPN client container to be deployed and configured. We would need to link containers. We would like traffic to be secured with VPN to that container gateway. No worries, it sounds more complicated than it really is. We also would need an OVPN file that is provided usually by your VPN provider. In my case, it's going to be obviously Proton. We are going to start with installing VPN client gateway using LMDS menu. While we are inside LMDS folder, we're just going to type deploy and launch the menu. From here, we're gonna usually choose the build LMDS stack and we're gonna deploy a VPN client. Just like that, enter, 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 enter. And as probably you did it before, we're just gonna create it. So for that, we're gonna wait probably a few minutes for system to pull down the image and then extract and launch the Docker container. So this is done. Let's have a look at our Docker Compose file here. That's where the VPN configuration went into. VPN configuration for the Docker containers. So that's what you're going to be seeing when you're going to do that. So let's go through what we can see here. Of course, as usual, you have a name of the container, the image name, and a few other bits and pieces. Generally, at this point, we're not going to change anything right now. What we're going to change later on, we're just going to add some ports in this section. And this port's going to be copied from other containers above and going to be removed from there instead because they can only exist in a single place. We're not going to touch DNS at this point. We're not going to touch any of the other configuration that is set up in here. They should be more or less okay for you. Route, this is something important. You have to modify the subnet to match your home network. So more or less all of us probably going to use this subnet, so 192.168, probably 0 or 1. So this is good for all. What is the difference in these two places? So more or less it's going to be working for you, I guess. And apart from that, we're not going to choose or change anything else in here for now. So I'm just going to Control X out of that, so I didn't modify anything there. What we have to do, we have to provide for this container 2 files. And if these files are going to be for authentication and to your Docker, to your VPN provider, and the OVF file that is provided by your provider also. So now if we're going to come back to Portainer and we're going to refresh it, you're going to see we have a VPN gateway that is starting. It's orange because it has no configuration, so it's probably failing and it's not going to be successful in starting. So we're going to stop it for now. In order to get this VPN gateway to work, we'll have to supply it with 2 files. One, it's going to be a VPN file that you get from your VPN provider, and another, which is going to be authentication file, the one that you're going to create manually. So if you are familiar with any VPN provider, if that's going to be your NordVPN, Viper VPN, or any other one, you know what the VPN files are, and you know that you can download them from your VPN provider. In my case, in Proton, I'm just gonna go into downloads and then open VPN configuration files, and there is a few of them. It's actually many of them, and they are public. I already have one of them downloaded and loaded into Dropbox for ease of use. I'm not going to download it again. Instead, I'm just going to copy the link that I have in here. And I'm going to download that file straight to my Raspberry Pi in here. wget, and we're going to paste the URL, and it should download the file. So if I'm going to list the folder, you can see I have the file in here. Also, you can see that we have a VPN folder that belongs to the VPN gateway container, and that's from where this container is going to get the configuration from. So what we have to do, we have to move that file into that folder. Important thing, we have to rename it because the container doesn't really know what the OVPN file is. It expects a config file instead. So I'm just going to simply sudo and move that file into VPN, and I'm going to call it VPN conf. There we go. So if we're going to list, the file is there. Next, we have to create an authentication file in the same place. So I'm just going to go to VPN folder here, list it again, and we're going to create the VPN. What's important here, it's not the name, but the extension. So you have to have 2 files, conf file and out file. So what you're going to put in here is your username, and so the username in Proton, it's not going to be the username that you're using to log into a portal. So it's not the same username that you or I log in to access this website. For that, it's going to be a different credential. So it's going to be very specific to your VPN provider, if that's Nord or Viper or Shark VPN or something. Find out what the credentials you should use. In my case, I'm just going to go to accounts, and I know it's going to be, you know, OpenVPN or Ike version 2 username and the password. So I'm just going to copy that. And instead of this, I'm gonna paste it in here. This is just an example account, so I'm not worrying about this, but I'm not gonna show you what the password is. So I'm just gonna, you know, paste it in here without showing you this, fortunately. Now I just saved the username and password in VPN help file, and I have VPN a config file in the same folder. So if we're gonna list the folder, as you can see, that's how it looks like. Now we're gonna modify the configuration file, and we're gonna add very simple record there, and that should be also for any other configuration file from any other provider. So sudo nano and VPN config, and we're gonna find something called authentication user pass. Usually it's already there, but if it's not, you'll have to just add it. And you can see out-user.pass, and we're gonna provide here our authentication file, the one that we just created with username password. So it is in the VPN folder, and I've called it VPN out, and that's it. So Control O to save it and Control X to execute it. This way, this all should work right now. So I'm just gonna clear the screen, and we are going to go back to container. Next, we're gonna start the container, and we'll find out if it's actually working or not. So that's gonna take a moment, and as you can see, it's starting as before. It should become green in a moment. We can try to connect the container itself. We can do it from here, and it's actually kicking us out. So that means the container just rebooted. So let's go back to containers, and it's still starting. I'm just gonna refresh it, because there's one thing that I struggled for a while. My configuration, it might be the same for you, and I'm gonna show you what it was. All these instructions, of course, you're gonna find on my website as well under the FAQ section. So now it's running, and if we're gonna try to connect to it, it says that it's just wait until container is running. So it rebooted again. So even if it's reporting that is running and it's green here, it's actually rebooting over and over again. We can go to its logs and find out what's happening. And it's complaining that there is an error and is failing to start or failing to find, I believe, this file. No such file, directory, error 2. So it basically missing some configuration file that it expects it to have. From where is that coming from? Well, it's coming from the configuration file that I took from my VPN provider, and I'm going to show you what it is and how to fix that if it's going to be exactly the same error you're having. So let's go back to container, and we're going to stop it. Then CLI. We're gonna go into a VPN folder again, list the files, and we're gonna look at the configuration. So vpn.conf file. And somewhere in here, it's going to be you see this section here. Script security 2, and it's basically pointing to exactly the same file that the container was complaining about. I'm not sure if we're gonna still see it, most likely not, but let's see if there are any logs. Yeah, left. So as you can see, etc openvpn update result comp. It's most likely because it's expecting the openvpn installation on the operating system and it's actually not there. So what we're going to do, I'm just gonna delete this 3 lines. Just like that, and then we're gonna save it, exit, clear again, so we don't have anything in here. Now let's try to start the container again. And we're gonna wait for a moment. We can go into logs again and find out what's happening. And this time, it's not complaining about anything. It's created a ton interface. That means it's a tunnel, and it's obtained the IP address from the VPN provider. So that's the IP address that the Proton is serving to me. So this is more likely working right now. Okay. And it should be still starting, but it should become green in a moment. Just to find out if it's not restarting over and over, we can go to container and connect to it and just wait a little bit to find out if it's doing anything strange. We can just find out what the IP address is. So we have a local, which is loop back, and then we have Ethernet 0. That's the internal network of the Docker container. And we also have a tunnel 0. I believe it should become something more than that. At least that's what the logs are saying. Let's go back to logs. So we're gonna disconnect from here. So it's healthy now. Well, as far as I'm concerned, in here it has a tunnel that is up, and it's serving IP address. So we're gonna leave this running for now, and we're gonna configure 2 containers to work with this one as a gateway. One of them is gonna be Deluge, and another one, I'm just gonna grab it from my website. It's just a testing container for a network connectivity, and there's lots of network tools in it, so it's easy to test. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna open or edit the Docker Compose file again, which is not under the VPN folder, so we have to go up. And in here, what we are going to do, we're going to configure Deluge to work with VPN gateway. So I'm just going to maximize it on the all screen so we can see it better. What we have to add in here is just a few records. So first of all, we're definitely not going to need any ports. Because these ports can only exist in the single place. And we're actually going to grab these ports and we're gonna paste it into ports under here. So this one and that one. Not sure why this is twice in here, but what's important is the indentation, so it has to align perfectly. If you're gonna put some spaces in here like this one, it won't work. So that's one thing. So then we're gonna go up, and in here we have to define a dependency that this container only starts when the VPN container is up. In order to do that, depends on, and then gonna put dash here, VPN. So that means the deluge container gonna depend on VPN container, and the VPN container is the one in here below that we got it running. Another thing is we have to connect this deluge container to the same network, so it's actually passing its traffic through a VPN container that we have. So the VPN container is connected to the VPN provider, and all the other containers that we want this traffic to be shared with are connecting to the VPN container itself. In order to do that, we have to just put, actually we're gonna edit one thing here rather than writing this down. So network mode, and we're gonna delete host, but we're gonna put service : VPN. That means they kind of work together. So that's one thing that we're gonna change. So now the deluge should connect to the VPN rather going straight through your internet connection to the internet as usual. So I'm just gonna save it. And in order to show you that this is actually working and changed, we're gonna open new tab and we're gonna connect to this deluge container. So this is what is actually running on the Raspberry Pi right now. And take a note, well, not that, but take a note about IP address. So 109.255.170.237. So this is my public IP address right now. Of course, it's dynamic, so it's going to change at some point again. This container traffic goes through my public IP address, unrestricted, unprotected, no VPN involved in that at all. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna stop it first, and then we're gonna recreate this container with the modification that we did in Docker Compose file. So in order to do that, as we already did the changes, so now we have to recreate this container by just typing Docker Compose minus -d. So Docker Compose will look at the changes we made, and as you can see, is recreating VPN gateway as well, because we've changed something there, which we added ports, and recreating deluge. It doesn't do anything with Sonarr because there's no changes to it. So now, if we're gonna go back to Portainer, and we're gonna refresh, they all should be up and running. And now, having in mind that the IP address is gone now, but we can go back in the video and find out what it was. And I believe this one is completely different to what we had before. So what we can do is just to find out, like, my IP, and what's my IP, and it should, that's my network IP. And the Docker container of deluge is going through the VPN, and that IP, it's different, and that belongs to Proton guys. So that's how you can test it, if it's actually going where it's supposed to go, and if it's doing what it's supposed to do. Now let's try to do some additional testing. So as I said, I'm just going to grab one of the containers from the website and from the FAQ section where I actually wrote all down what I just did on the video, so you can read it through if you like. But what I'm gonna need is this container in here. As you can see, it's already saying it's depend on VPN and it's network mode exactly the same what I changed to the luge container before. So I'm just gonna grab this and again edit the Docker compose file. And I'm gonna paste it somewhere, let's say in here. Just to make sure I have all the spaces and stuff aligned. Now let's save it. And again, we have to recreate the containers that have changed. Nothing changed, we just added something. So just simply Docker components up -d. So that's gonna look through the Docker compose file that we just added, and it's gonna find that there is a new container definition there. It's just gonna download the image, extract it, and bring it up. Create Docker, and then bring the microservice up. So in container, we're gonna have additional container in here, net tool. So rather than going in the container into the container itself, now I'm just going to show you how you can do it from the command line. So Docker compose PS, it's going to just display all the containers that are running, and we're going to need the name. So now it's Docker sec -it container name, which is going to be net tools, let's say, and what the shell, which is going to be bin bash. So it's not starting bin bash shell, so it might be bin sh. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I just clean the screen, so we are on the top inside the container. What we can do in here, let's say ifconfig, and we can see we have a Ethernet 0 with the IP address which belongs to internal network of the containers. So this is like behind the NAT, behind the masquerade done by the container by Docker. Loopback, so it's just a loopback, and then we have a tunnel 0, and that should be IP address that belongs to a Proton network, and it's for the VPN container, and the VPN container shares this network IP address with the other containers that are linked to it. So another interesting tool what you might know is MTR. Let's say to google.com, and that's going to tell you or show you how it's going to the Google, like what hops and through which IP addresses, and that's how you're it's something like a trace route, but it's dynamically updated, so it's kind of refreshing, 18 times, 19 times, and to give you some other statistics as well. So that's our IP address. So queue to quit route. So that is showing you what's your default gateway, which is again the gateway of the VPN IP address. That's the gateway for internal networks, and that's how you can actually connect to this container from your network, because if that wouldn't be here, container would work and would communicate with internet through the VPN fine, but you won't be able to connect to it anymore from your local network. So that's how it's actually done. So guys, I think that's about it, what I was going to show you in this video. I hope I made this a little bit easier for you. If I did, and you're successful of using a VPN inside the Docker and passing through the traffic from other containers through it, then I appreciate if you would put some comment underneath the video, and maybe put, smash a thumbs up. It always helps the Google or YouTube algorithm to promote the video, yourself. So if you like it, maybe more people will see it as well. There's one more thing that you should be aware of when you modifying Docker Compose YAML file, and I'm going to show you what it is, because it might happen that your modification will be gone, and that can be very daunting, and there is a way of preventing from happening. So let's say we edit the file, and we did some changes as we have, and let's say I want to preserve changes for the deluge container. So just gonna grab it like that and Control X. And if you list all the folders, you're gonna find here a folder called services. We're gonna go into it. And if we're going to list the folder here, you can see that there are folders for the containers that you've deployed. And these folder represents a template. So when you're selecting something to be deployed, then these templates are being copied in here. I'm just going to change one of them and show you what it means, because that's very important if you want to preserve the changes that you did into YAML file. So let's say we're going to go to deluge, and we're going to list what's there. That's going to be only service, that's YAML. And we're going to nano that service file. As you can see, this is very similar to what we had or what we have in Docker Compose file. So this is what we end up having in Compose, and below is what the template is. So you can see these are default settings from when the container is being built for the first time. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to leave it the changed one, because every time now, if you're going to go to run deploy.sh script, okay, so we've deleted what was there, and we've copied our modifications in here. So Control O to save it, and Control X. So let's go back to LMDS, and let's say we're gonna run deploy again. So when you do that, and when you gonna build the stack, let's say you're gonna create something, you want to create something more, let's say something small, let's say Nginx, and you're gonna say okay, and there's a question, do you want to use recent config? Do you want to preserve the environmental, or if you want to pull config from the template? So you're always going to use recent configuration, so you not lose changes. But if you're going to do that, the system going to pull the template from the services folder. So we edited the deluge file there, but we didn't do anything with VPN container. So you see what's going to happen if I'm just going to press enter, 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 and then I'm going to run. The docker compose of -d. So it's obviously downloading the nginx and it's going to create a container, because that's what we just wanted to happen. And it's going to recreate the VPN gateway, Sonarr, creating nginx, and you're going to see what's going to happen in Docker Compose right now. So just because we copied the luge configuration into services folder, you can see that the changes that we made are here. But if we're gonna go to VPN, and you remember we added ports in here because this is mandatory, they are gone. That means the template has been pulled and overwritten what we have changed in here, and that's going to happen every time if you're going to rebuild from template using the deploy sh script. So in order to prevent that, you have to, if you're changing something here manually from what is default, you have to copy these changes into LMDS /services, find the specific folder that you've created, that you've changed the configuration for which container, and then copy these changes over there. So if we would like to fix that, what we have to do, we have to again get these ports from, as you can see, from Deluge, and paste them underneath here. So we're gonna comment that, of course. And now we're gonna save and exit. In order for this to be preserved folder, we have to go to services, VPN, and then nano services, and then we have to add that over here as well. So this way, anytime we're going to deploy something new, all our changes would be preserved. Control O, Control X. So this time, if we're gonna go back and I'm gonna deploy, build the stack, let's say we no longer want this, and again we making the same choices, it's telling us to run this, so it's gonna take one of the containers away. If we nano docker compose again and scroll down, the luge is unchanged as we expect, and also VPN container and its configuration is unchanged either, because we edited services there. If you wouldn't do it, it would be back to square one and you have to configure it all over again. So guys, this is a very long video, but I hope it helped you. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.